Welcome back to the channel. This is The Casuals. I'm Jin.
And I'm Saki.
And today's episode is Impractical Questions, part 5, I believe. Because we're in question 51 now, right?
Yes.
Gotcha. So, like usual, Saki will ask, set of questions that may or may not, be very impractical or very thought provoking or whichever way it may go. Those of you who have watched it before will know what this whole thing is about. Those of you who are new, just be prepared for a lot of silly questions and a lot of silly answers. This is basically down, if we boil it down to its core. But yeah, nothing else really much, so I guess we get straight into it. So, what's the first question?
Alright, first one for this episode is: do deaf people hear what they think?
No. Um, and I think it's because, like, I don't think they would understand the concept of hearing what they think. Um, if they don't have any concept of sound to begin with. So like you can't they probably do some form of like, the way like we think of it as like hearing ourselves think. Um but the way they do it is probably not the same. They probably process their thoughts differently. Which in the end doesn't equate to hearing themselves think, because if sound doesn't exist to them as a concept from the very beginning, then the concept of hearing yourself think is pretty much impossible.
Okay. Okay, I see where you're getting at.
Yeah. And I think there might have been like a couple questions too where they try. I mean, it's like almost like that conundrum of how do you describe color to a blind person? You can't,
Oh,
because
yeah.
they don't have any reference, right? Same thing I would assume for sound. Like they don't have any reference. If anything, right? Um, at most it'd probably be like vibrations.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my answer.
Alright, yeah, that makes sense actually. Again, when I think of these questions, I don't really actually like think into it, think about them very much. I just think they're hilarious.
Yeah, but for me, I just immediately thought of that. Like, for some reason, I couldn't think of a hilarious answer right back.
All good. Alright, so I guess we should move on to the next one. So it would be: do atheists swear on the Bible in court?
No. In fact, well, yes and no. Yes, as in they probably go along with the mood. Um, but no, no, as in you are not required to. This has been an interesting thing because I remember this specifically. There was a whole debate about this. Side note. What is interesting is when a president gets sworn into office, right? The most common thing is, they swear with the Bible in their hand, and then at the very end they say, "So help me God," right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and someone pointed out that I remember there was a whole debate that there is no such rule as swearing to God. It is just something that just happened as like kind of like a cultural thing. Uh, and the same thing is the same for the justice courts, like the justice branch, right? The judicial area where they do not swear to the Bible. They swear to the Constitution and like you know the amendments, right? The Constitution mainly. That is what they swear to abide by those rules. And I think it's really interesting because there's a whole like what's it called, wormhole for this rabbit hole. Um, Even the military does not directly they do not swear to the president. They do not swear to like a leader. They swear to the country itself, if that makes sense. That is where their allegiance lies. Obviously, it is not one to one in terms of that. There's a lot of nuance to how they swear and what they actually believe in. But in terms of direct rule set, they swear to the country, and essentially that is the same to um, when you're in court. You do not need to swear by the Bible. You only need to testify that you would testify nothing but the truth, and only the truth and nothing but the truth. Uh, and you can, if I remember correctly, I might be speaking out of my ass right now. Um, there is no Bible needed. You do not need to swear on the Bible. Um, But in terms of realistic sense, yes, atheists would swear in the Bible because it's just the way the cultural thing happens. But no, because you are legally you are allowed to not swear on the Bible.
Huh, you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
I did not know that. But that's interesting, though.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a cultural thing.
Yeah. And it's really funny too. I guess if you get that, this might get a little bit political, but like the whole purpose of like swearing to the Constitution and like swearing to the people was specifically to avoid the whole religious aspect of running the country. That's the whole reason why like America even quote unquote forward. Well, not really, but one of the main reasons why was because persecution from the Protestant persecution from the Catholics. And so they were like, the founding fathers were like, well, that's bad. We shouldn't, we should not, swear to, a governing divine being. We should swear to an oath to the people and only the people and uphold that, kind of, I guess, expectation. Obviously, during America's beginning and throughout its history, it was heavily, Protestant.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's deep rooted within 300 years worth of like, religion influence within the governmental branch and like, it being more of a cultural expectation, despite it explicitly, if I'm correct, explicitly, you are allowed to not swear on the Bible. So yeah, that's just something that I thought it was interesting.
That is interesting. Cool, you learn something new every day, even if it's through these dumb questions.
Yep.
All right, I guess moving on from that, here's a more silly one. If you mated a bulldog with a Shih Tzu, would you call it a bullshit?
Yes. um, because I guess that's how most dogs are kind of combined, right? It's usually the first words. Like Maltese poodle is multi-poodle or multi-poo.
Now that I think about, yeah, I think it is usually the first like part of the name.
And then Labrador with golden retrievers, what's it called?
Labradoodle.
Labradoodle, yeah. Although that is slightly different, I guess.
But
But I
yeah,
would assume there's at least one part, that is beginning, right? So it wouldn't be too out of question if a bulldog and Shih Tzu managed to make a different breed, which is honestly kind of horrifying in that kind of aspect. But yeah, I guess you could technically name it bullshit, and it would work.
yeah, because it'd be weird if you called it a Boltsu.
Yeah,
Yeah, that just sounds wrong. Boltsu.
yeah. Although I would assume that's what most people would go with, just because they don't want to say bullshit, so they would probably go with Bolsu.
Well, then they're weak.
They're weak-willed.
If I had a bulldog Shih Tzu mix, I'd call it a bullshit.
It reminds me, this is suddenly a tangent. I have told you this story before, Saki, but did I ever tell you? I think I did tell you. Yeah, I once found a third grade book that had the word bitch in it in referring to the female dog.
Yeah.
I was so
remember you
shocked.
told
It was when I was like back in like I want to say junior high or elementary. I found this book and I was just like, what? Why does it say bitch? And I finally found out that I figured out that it was referring to the female dog. But I was so stunned that like a third grade book would have bitch in it.
That must have been like an old school book.
Yeah, I would assume so because it was like a farm setting too.
And yeah, that's probably the reason why. But yeah, that's like old school book.
Yeah, it shocked me. Well, yeah, I guess, and nowadays I would assume younger kids would curse naturally.
Yeah, easily. It's like their vocabulary. So.
Yeah.
All right, I guess moving on to the fourth question. If animals could talk, which species do you think would be the rudest?
Apes, chimpanzees specifically. Those motherfuckers are rude. Yeah, chimpanzees. I would say chimpanzees would be the most rude. Because have you seen their behavior?
Not particularly, no.
They're freaking wild. Well, I guess it would be a competition, at least from my imagine. From what I okay, no, it wouldn't be chimpanzees. Now that I think about it, the reason why I instinctively said chimpanzee was because I heard like people were like, oh, I can take on a chimpanzee. Which animal you can take on in a 1 versus 1.
Uh-huh.
People are like, oh, I can take on the chimpanzee because they seem to be small and skinny. You cannot. They are muscled. They just look they're lean, but they're muscled. They can rip your scalp off if they want to, like as if they're just tearing through paper. Uh, and I heard some behaviors from them before, but I'm pretty sure that old behavior only happens if you actually aggravate them. Um, like the same
Yeah.
thing as gorillas. Like they're pretty docile unless you piss them off directly. Um, but then I think that's why I immediately answered chimpanzee. In reality, I think it'd be penguins. Penguins or
Penguin.
dolphins.
Really?
Yes. There are a lot of gross things about penguins and dolphins that they like to do. Let's just say there's a lot of things involved with corpse. Um, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think I know you're getting at least for the dolphin one.
Yeah. Penguins do it too, by the way.
Really? Okay. Well,
Yes.
later in this episode, there is a question about penguins, so
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
we'll get to that one. We get there.
All right.
All right. So I guess moving on to question 5. This one's kind of a funny, dumb one as well.
Mm-hmm.
How many chickens would it take to be able to kill a lion?
One, if we're speaking about the hyper theoretical chances, realistically, maybe about 50. And the reason being is that a lion can lion. But once they start outnumbering you in a certain amount, you're not going to escape, no matter how good you are. And the reason why I say theoretical chances of 1 is if the chicken gets really lucky and pecks out the eyes at the very beginning, I think it could win.
All right. I'll raise a couple extra little variables in there.
All right.
So first, we could take this question as how many chickens to fight the lion, but then you could think the lion could just eat the chicken.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how many chickens do you think a lion needs to eat to like overeat and like just die?
Not a lot, because as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I know, the lion's diet doesn't really include feathery animals, and in their natural habitat, as far as I know. There are some feathery examples like deer or like that have fur, or zebras,
Mm-hmm.
But as far as I'm concerned, it's not actual full-on feather. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would assume it wouldn't take much for the lion to try and eat a whole chicken and then choke on its feather, if that makes sense. Because I don't know if they can actually process like spitting out like parts of feather sticking to their mouths and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, I actually don't think it would take much. Like maybe even like 1 is enough to stop him from being able to eat anymore.
I could see that.
Because
And
I'm
then
thinking about it. It's just their natural diet just does not include a lot of feathery animals.
usually it's more like what are those called? Not zebras. I can't think of the name.
I can't think of anything either.
I can't think of the name. Anyway,
Giraffes.
and then going back to like chickens usually like don't they usually like when they sense like danger they'd like run away though?
No, not really. Well, I guess it depends on the context, and this is, I think, true for most animals. I want to say is if they, as an individual, like chicken, exists, right, and they are in danger. I think yes, the natural response will be fly, run away.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know for a fact that if they have babies or eggs, they will get aggressive. They will fight. And I think that's just a natural instinct for a lot of animals. And I do know chickens will get like peck at you if you try taking their eggs without like, distracting them.
Uh-huh.
So they will fight, I feel like. They will fight. It really just depends. I guess I don't know if they would actually fight a lion in that case. I have no idea. Um, but I know they will pick at humans, um,
Right. Yeah.
because I guess they learn to like let humans feed them, whatever, so they're not as afraid as like a predator, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there are also other cases where the mother doesn't bother fighting at all, like kangaroos, if I'm correct. If mother kangaroo feels like she is in danger, and she has her babies in her pouch, she will literally throw out one of her joeys, um, to feed to her pursuers because she feels like if she cannot outrun them, she will get rid of the one that she thinks will least likely be able to survive in its own natural, like without being chased, and she'll just throw it out. She'll just take the strongest one with her in the pouch and run away.
Interesting.
Yeah, I only learned that like maybe a couple years ago, and I was just like, oh my god.
That kind of sucks for the one Joey, but
Yeah.
they, circle of life.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. Chickens, I don't know. I mean, we would have to throw a chicken at like, or we would have to introduce a lion to like its natural habitat because I think any animal would be very petrified if, especially like a smaller chicken or the ones that usually are preyed on, like chicken. I think they wouldn't be very comfortable if they were thrown into the Sahara all of a sudden.
True.
So their fight or their fight instincts would go to flight because they don't know where they are. Um, but I don't know. Maybe if we introduce, I'm never gonna do this because one, I don't have the money, but two, I'm not really interested in finding out in the first place. Um, is if you were to bring a lion into a chicken that's been living there for a long time, has babies and everything, who knows what might happen? Would they just cower in fear, run away, or would they actually fight the motherfucker and like beat him up unexpectedly?
Yeah, I guess we'll never know unless we test it out, right?
Yeah. Which we would probably get pursued by like the official federal agencies for like doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, PETA would not like us. Anyways, yeah, for that question, if you like to take a stab at how many chickens it'd take to kill a lion, go ahead and put a number. I kind of want to see what numbers pop up.
Yes, make it quantifiable.
Like, I'd like to see someone just be like, yeah, just one chicken can take it on, and then like another person's like, let's just get a whole army, 100 plus chickens. That'd be hilarious too.
I mean, have you heard of the Great Emu War?
Yes,
Yes, the emus won. So it is definitely possible.
it is. I just want to know what that number is. Anyways, moving on from chickens and lions. Next question is, why is it called cargo when it goes by a ship and shipping when it goes by a car/truck?
Because
Are they switched?
you know what? That's interesting. Um, well, I guess I can answer the second part. Why is it called shipping? Because the very first forms of mass transportation was by boat. Um, in terms of very mass quantities, not necessarily like camel, horseback. That was just normal, but you couldn't carry that much. They could pull a wagon, but that's basically pulling a wagon. That's not, or like carriage. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of actual delivering mass amount of car or like merchandise or supplies, yeah, shipping makes sense for it to be called shipping because it was literally on a ship. That was one of the ways to mass transport things back then. As for why it originates calling from cargo, um, I could not tell you. Like, I genuinely cannot think of, like, even as a joke answer, I genuinely cannot think of a answer for the life of me because I don't know where it could have came. Maybe it came from a Latin word or something like that, and it somehow just loosely translated into car and go, and then you just were like, go with it,
Yeah, I mean, it could have. I don't really know.
I'm
Again,
actually
I don't really
curious.
think about it.
Cargo word origin. So, so I was right. It is from Latin. So the origins of cargo comes from the mid 17th century from Spanish cargo or carga, from late Latin caricare or carcare, to load, which means to load from lattice, and then from Latin carus, wheeled vehicle. So eventually it was just a word that existed in Latin and they loosely translated it over time and it ended up in the Spanish language as cargo or carga, and then they just ran with it because I guess if you do remember the Spanish, Spain, they went through a lot of places with their explorations.
Yes, they did.
So it's not surprising that, especially when they were trading with other countries, not to mention, I believe they also traded with the English. Um, cargo eventually came out as the word.
So cargo isn't the word for shipping or by boat, I guess. And
Yeah,
shipping, and shipping just went by car, truck. I guess it just caught on that way.
yeah, because again, the main way of trading back then was ships, and so they associated cargo with ships.
All right, and they just flipped it, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, one's more about like just making the noun into a verb, and the other one is more like it transformed because it was more of an association than rather than the word itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty interesting.
Hmm. Again, you learn something new every day.
Yep.
All right, I guess we can move on. Question 7. If prunes are dried plums, where does prune juice come from?
Dried plums. um, no, actually, yeah, actually, I that's the only answer I have is it just comes from dried plums. Despite it saying dried plums, which means there should be no more liquid inside it theoretically, right?
Right.
Um, yeah, why is it called prune juice now that I think about it? Oh,
When
you
they
know what? Is it because it's blended instead?
is it? I don't know. I don't know if it's blended, but I yeah, they're dried plums. So if you got juice from a plum, it'd be plum juice. I can see that.
Yeah.
Because even if you
Oh.
rehydrate a prune, it'd still be into a plum, so it'd be getting plum juice. But
Um, let's see. So apparently, prunes are not necessarily dried plums. Um, what's it called? Hmm. According to some people, so a lot of people are saying, "Oh yeah, it's prunes are dried plums indeed, right?" Um,
Mhm.
but when you rehydrate them, you get more of a concentrated sugar, which is why it's called prune juice, because that concentrated um sugar that's from the dried part, right, is rehydrated, and so the taste would be different compared to a plum.
So prune juice would be more sweet because of the sugar?
Uh, I don't know if it's necessarily sugar, but like the chemical composition has changed, so it tastes different.
Okay. I
Um,
thought if you'd rehydrate a prune to a plum again, it'd just be plum juice, but I guess that makes sense.
yeah, because like even if you were to dry a banana, like if you were to rehydrate it, it would taste different. I feel like it wouldn't be the same banana,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I would assume this applies to every single like even fruits like apples,
Oh,
orange.
let's take into raisins and grapes. Because grapes dried are raisins, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you rehydrate a raisin, it'd go back into a grape, right?
Would it? I wonder because again, when you do take out a lot of moisture or water content from any food in general, the composition does change, um, and like flavor becomes more concentrated. So when you re-add water, I wonder if I don't think you will actually get the same taste.
I guess we'll have to try it with raisins.
Yeah, it's just buy a couple of raisins, throw it in water, and see what happens. It probably just tastes like nothing.
It'd probably just get plump like a grape again, but it won't taste like a grape.
Yeah, probably definitely not. I don't know. We're
Oh.
dumb.
Yeah, we'll do our little experiment with raisins and grapes and get back to you.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow. Who knows?
We'll see. Although I don't, if I go Costco, I don't want like an 8-pound bag of raisins. I just want like 4 raisins, not like 4,000 raisins.
Yeah, like the classic red, that little red packet.
Yeah, the little snack box or whatever.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to find one in
So
the regular grocery store.
the sun-made raisins or whatever they're
Oh
called.
yeah, there was called Sunmaid. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like raisins or grapes, so I'd have you try it.
I'll gladly try it for science.
All right. Moving on. Here is the penguin question.
All right.
Do penguins have knees?
No. Uh, because when they bend over, they're not bending over with their legs, they're bending over with their spine. That's a legit answer, by the way. I do not think they have knees, if I'm correct. Actually,
Ha!
no.
Googled it. Says, well, in short, yes, penguins do have knees.
I was like, wait a minute, no, because I was thinking about something else. I was thinking about just this is only their leg.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, no, wait, they do have knees because I remember like there was an image of like this is really weird, and I know this is gonna sound really weird without it, like I can't make it sound any better. But I remember there being a picture of a naked penguin, and I forget exactly how I saw it, but I remember like seeing that kind of leg part, and then I realized after thinking about it, like, I was like, oh yeah, they do kind of have knees, yeah.
Yeah, it says a penguin's legs are built up of a femur, knee, tibia, fibula, just like ours.
Mm-hmm.
Their legs may appear short and stubby, but don't be deceived. Most of them are concealed by their feathers. So I guess they do have knees.
Concealed legs, like concealed carry. They give you the knee out of nowhere like a fighting game. Whatcha?
So penguins are actually taller than we think. They're just always, quote unquote, squatting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because it says penguins' knees sit at an angle, so technically they're squatting most of the time.
Damn, they be do
Can you
they have
imagine if they just stand up and they're like 6 feet tall? Freaking kind of scary, actually.
That would be scary. I mean, in relation to scary, I remember there was when Arctic exploration was still like beginning, like in its popular phase, when a lot of explorers were going to Arctic and recording all the stuff they saw there, and the existence of penguins became known, right? And penguins quickly became like a children's toy, children's like look and everything like that. And so I think it was around the I want to say 1900s, 19 like either 1900s or 20 or like the 1950s or 1800s. I'm not too sure. I just remember there was a account or a recount from a man who went and studied penguins, right? And he said it was so horrifying to see what the activities that the penguins did that they had to vow to never publish it until way later, for the sake of the kids.
Huh.
Yeah. What they did, I won't say, because one, it is kind of not safe for work, but two, it's like you're better off knowing. Ignorance is bliss in this case,
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, and those of you who don't know about penguins but do know about dolphins, let's just say they do about the same thing. Let's just go with that.
Yeah, we'll leave it there too.
Yeah. Penguins are scary, man. Don't want to go near them.
I guess so, especially if they have knees and they want to stand up to their full height. Can only imagine.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 9. Do people with a stutter also stutter in their thoughts?
No. This is a serious answer. No, because, well, I guess one, to make it more technical, stuttering is more of a mechanical thing. It is not necessarily a thought process that makes you stutter, because you could technically stutter in your mind, but when you actually speak it, you won't stutter. And it's just and that's just a motorized function thing that is like quote unquote malfunctioning or functioning in a different way that causes you to stutter. And two, the reason why I know that they don't stutter in their mind is because they are able to hear other people, talk, speak. They're able to process that. It's not like everything that they hear is in stutters too. So because of that, their brain is able to have clear and concise thoughts, and it doesn't stutter. And I remember I heard like someone talking about it, like, yeah, I have stutters, but I don't think it stutters. It's ridiculous. Like, I think just like you, but the issue is that's the frustrating part. I can think it in my mind, but I can't say it. And I think that's like the same thing with like quote unquote mentally challenged or disabled people. a lot of them have been observed to have very clear conscious of what they want to, they're thinking, right? They're clearly capable of thinking like quote unquote normal people. It's just their nervous system, when translating it into actual motorized actions, does not work.
Huh.
So in a sense, it's kind of also horrifying in a way. They're prisoners to their own body. Their minds are prisoners to their own body because they're stuck with a physical alteration from what would be considered a normal human functional basis of, speech or movement.
That's interesting. Huh. I never really thought of that or knew that at all. So,
Yeah. Quite a serious topic too, I guess. I mean, I could be hyper generalizing it, but from my understanding, that's how it is.
All right. Again, you learn something new every day.
Yeah. Also, I guess if I want to point out, like, you listen to music, right? You're able to replicate that music inside your head. You're able to think about like what how the melody goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you try playing it, you can't. It generally, if you're not practiced or well experienced in that specific instrument or field. But that doesn't mean when you try playing it, that mess of the music that goes like tong 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 whatever is not like a beautiful piano melody in your head. That doesn't mean the tong 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 replaces that beautiful piano melody. You still have that melody in your head. It's just you can't replicate it because it's a motor restriction rather than a mind restriction or like mental restriction.
Makes you think.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess the last question for this set. I'm reading it now, and even I don't understand it. I must have been on something when I wrote this. You know how? Okay, I must have been like high, because like, have you seen those like police videos where they pulled over some guy that's really high and he goes, "How high are you?" And the driver goes, "Yeah, hi, how are you?" Yeah, I'm looking at that now, and I feel like that's what happened to my
You're
brain.
on ketamine.
Maybe. So here's the question: is how far east do you need to go before it's considered going west?
Never.
Yeah, I just read that, or I read it in my head before. I just said that, and I'm like, huh. I really must have been on something for that one.
Because no matter how I put it, I'm like, there's no way. Because if you're constantly going left, it never becomes right.
Yeah.
And even if you were just like, well, if you flip over the perspective, that just means you're going right then.
Yeah, you're just going all right.
Yeah.
You're going always going west. That's never east.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That's dude, you should ask that to a high, like, if you have a friend that ever, like, if we ever have a friend that smokes a lot of weed or something at a time, we should ask them that and see what they say. I think that's the play.
Is that the play?
Yeah, that's the play. Because us sober people won't ever be able to come up with an answer. But I'm sure that one of our high friends, if we have a high person who gets high all the time, and if we ask them, I'm sure we'll get a golden answer out of them.
Well, probably like his face will just like glow up, and he'll go, "Whoa," and then he'll like give an answer or something like
300 meters.
And he gives a exact numerical number.
Yeah, and he's like, "Why do you think 300 meters? Because that's where the touchdown happens." Like, what? I mean, who knows what will go in their mind? But well, I mean, that mystery will never be solved. How far east do you have to go before it's considered west? Maybe this will be a mystery of mankind that will never be answered forever and ever. Maybe if we do find the answer, the universe will explode.
I think it will. Yeah, reading that question again, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, a lot of them are nonsense, but this is really just...
It is, yeah, this one's really out there.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to a close. What an ending, So I'll end the episode here. So I'm Jin.
And I'm Saki.
And this is The Casuals, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.